Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Bubble Man's World. Welcome to Hash Church 2.0, episode 11. Squeezing these 2.0 shows out slowly but surely. Just wanted to thank everyone who's in the chat room, who's been holding it down for a while now. We got 70s Mama in there, and we got Cuban Chronic and Robert Sellers, Tame Up and Red River Organics. And apparently 128 people that have been waiting for Hash Church to start this morning. So without further ado, why don't I invite some folks in here? Shall we? Shall we do that? Let's do it. Let's see if this email gets fired off. Gotta listen for it. There it goes. Whooshoo! Well, hopefully to see some familiars today and maybe some unfamiliars. I have at least one person who's coming on that's never been on before. Hello, Alex Mountjoy from the UK. Welcome, 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 everybody. Welcome, Ron Jones. And welcome, Etienne. Now that's what's up.
What's up? Can you hear me?
Dude, I've missed you.
I've been busy.
You have been busy. You've got all sorts of things going on, don't you?
It is the season. It's fall.
Yes, tis the season as well. Well, it's great to see you, dude. Man, I'll tell you, it seems like it's been forever since we just had so many things sort of line up with terrible things going on and sicknesses and busyness, and just tell us what's going on down in Cali with Etienne.
Oh, wow. Well, locally in California, we're still dealing with the new regulations. Federally, we got the first VA bill or any cannabis bill out of subcommittee ever. And then we did it again this past week. So federally, things are definitely changing, even with who we have in office currently. And then the biggest thing, we're getting ready for our 19th anniversary at BPG next month.
Wow.
19 years doing this. Oof.
Dude, that's almost that is how old Bubble Bags is. Bubble Bags turns 20 in March of next year.
Yeah, we'll be into that's next October for us. But yeah, it's we're the dedicated. We've been doing this a while, and we put our money where our mouth is, literally, decades ago.
Jesus, that is for sure. Well, it's definitely one of the first sort of, I guess I met Debbie at least 20 years ago, maybe even like 21 or 22 years ago, right before that all sort of started rolling. But amazing how fast things go as you just get older. Time's just passing, right? We're just like, in the early days, it just seemed to take very long periods of time to pass these years. And now it's just, I seem like I blink and a fiver has gone by.
Well, we've towed a lot of rope in these last 20 years as well. 20 years ago, they said it'd never happen in our lifetimes, right? And, being neck deep in it and doing everything that we've done, we've picked up people like Johnny B and others along the way that have joined the cause. And now we're just an unstoppable momentum. Hi, Johnny B.
Good morning, guys. Like we said years ago, when that tree's falling in the fort and it's going. It's like, that's what happened with cannabis. That tree was falling, and eventually it was going to hit the ground, and it's where we are today. Wow, it's getting close. We're like 31 days away from legalization here in Canada. And we're at the grassroots conference yesterday and talking about it. And you know what? Everybody's looking at a huge change. It's exciting.
Across the board. I mean,
it's exciting and it's scary too.
Absolutely.
Really scary.
Well, it's not perfect, and everybody expected perfection right out the gate from, your laws and our laws. And of course, they're not perfect. So people think that since we won, we get to give up and, have a great time. And it's like, no, this is where we need to actually be in and involved. And the old saying goes, if you're not part of the discussion, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. So the best thing is to always be involved, so that you are always, talking about, you may not always be on the menu, but at the same time, you can at least help and contribute, because we all have fostered knowledge from what we've gained from doing what we've done. Some have gone into consultants, others just, double down, and we do what we do. So proud of everybody here for what y'all have done up in Canada, and hopefully someday we'll have some reflection on what's going on in the United States. And I apologize for our stupid government really fucking with y'all and your people up there in Canada regarding, you know, coming to the United States. They're threatening to boycott people for life from coming into the United States. So I'm reading this morning that, you know, the United States is trying to talk to Canada, but our president in charge is just being an asshat regarding everything, including Canada. And you guys are our friends. You guys taken care of us over the years in times of need. And I just think it's shameful how the United States has treated, you know, you fellow Canadians, especially cannabis Canadians. It's absolutely beyond shameful.
It's a bummer. There's no doubt about that. Welcome, Johnny B, to the old Hash Church room. We got 362 viewers here at 9:06 a.m. So there's some people waiting to hear what we have to say. It is unfortunate that this is going on. This is a major thing for Canadians. This is what Etienne's talking about, is not just people that are smoking and growing cannabis, but even having any type of investments in stock in companies, sort of in any way connected to the cannabis industry or cannabis as a whole. They've been threatening, and they've actually been doing it to a certain degree. I don't want to blow it out of proportions, but they have been blocking and banning people for life. Now, that really doesn't mean you're never allowed to go to the US again, but what that does is it denies you for a solid 6 months while you apply for a waiver to get down. And it can be even more than 6 months. And then it's, of course, up to the discretion of Homeland Security, whether they let you in at all. And I have heard people getting banned for a cannabis offense and then getting let back in after, you know, a 6 to 8 month sort of jumping through the hoops. But that's nothing really people want to be having to do, especially people. This really mostly affects Canadians, only affects Canadians in the sense that if they have a company in the US and they have a company in Canada and they have to go back and forth, if they get banned for life, you know, those people, if they're pertinent to that company, if they need to be down there in that company doing particular work, that really throws the whole company off in a way that, you know, could be potentially detrimental for a company depending on how they position themselves. So it's definitely changing the way people look at things. And welcome to Mike West. How you doing, buddy? Couple of peace symbols.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you okay. You kind of sound like you're in a tunnel with one of those mega horns, but we can hear you. I think that the only time it really skips out is when you far away from the microphone, and then it'll do a little skipping. But I heard you perfect just there.
Curse of the beard, my man. Curse of the beard.
Yes, the beard curse. Well, none of us really kind of know that. I guess I have a tiny bit of stubble. Etienne, I see a little bit under your beard there.
I keep a chin strap.
He keeps a chin strap. I like it. Not to be full alopecian. It's like
nah. I have scars from some shrapnel I took, so I kind of wear this to kind of cover up the scars. So
wow, that's heavy.
Yeah, you do.
There's a big court case going on here in Vancouver that's probably going to sum up on Monday. That in regards, that's basically fighting for all of the compassionate clubs that have been serving medical patients in Canada that are going to be forced to shut down, in a sense, on October 17th because there's no access. And we were talking about it yesterday, and a lot of people I'm talking with, a lot of patients are quite scared of what's happening with legalization because they won't be able to have that interaction they've had for the last 20 years with other members and other patients with the bud tenders and stuff like that. And it's on the medical end, it's really scary for a lot of patients because a place of access they've been going to for quite some time, like the BCCS, Mark, that place is basically
it's not going anywhere, though. There's no way after October 17th the BC Compassion Club is going out of business.
But all of these places are now being threatened with this new law.
Well,
yeah, there was a news article that said the BCC said they only expected one license to be issued in BC.
So that will be it.
I would just say this. These places have been under threat by law for all 20 years that they've existed.
Yes.
So we have to understand that they are, you know, the BC Compassion Club is the epitome essential level of disobedience here in Canada, at least, that has ever existed. Until it's legal now, we gotta just wipe the board clean of this. And the argument is very, very simple. It's the civil disobedience that created the entire medical program that we have today. And so we're still going to require, civil disobedience until, like Etienne says, until it becomes perfect. You have to have a seat at the table. And Hillary definitely has a seat at all the tables across Canada, whether it's, the fully regulated federal, the creator of regulations on that side. I know she sits at the table, or if it's even from the, more the street side, black market, civil disobedience, gray market. She's got her foot in that world as well. And I have faith in people like Hillary to take it to the next level for sure.
Well, it's part of the eternal vigilance that we've always talked about. If part of the reality is that, we've risked our freedoms, and now that we've seen the change in the laws, we think we can get complacent. But here in California, with the pass of 64, we were blocked from giving away free cannabis. So we've had to spend the last few months down in Sacramento lobbying Sacramento for a law, and because they were going to outlaw compassion programs at a certain point. So we have passed it, we've gotten it through, and now we're just waiting on the governor's signature. So that's part of the reality of the long haul, and where you have to plug in yourself. You have to physically go put on suits, physically go down to your representatives, your assembly people, and you talk to them. You have meetings with them. It's not that hard, people. It sounds so frightening and so intimidating, but it is so absolutely fucking simple. All you need is just to dress nice, go down, look professional, and talk to people. It's not that difficult. It's for some reason, people have always thought it was some sort of a crazy reality to allow us to get here, but it's your direct plugging in. And if our people in Caladrius Network and others hadn't have actually plugged in directly to California, we would be shit out of luck still. Now, I know that's a totally different thing, dealing with the state, and you're dealing with the federal government. So, but it still takes your, your interactions, your talking to, your lobbying as well. You can still affect that change to an extent. There's an extent you can't now, but there's an extent that you still can, correct?
Yeah, we've kind of been pushed in a way with this cannabis community to the point where we were disconnected from all that was available to us. In the same way what you're saying, Etienne, which is the simplicity of joining into that system and playing the game that they play and getting at that table. It's kind of the same metaphor for the hashish production, the processing, the growing. Cannabis growers are doing it in the basement. They're doing it with these lights that they've, originally taken off of a hockey arena or something. And you sort of climb through the history of it, and you see that as we start incorporating things from the agricultural community, it suddenly is like, oh, it's so much easier if we have tables that move on rollers. And it's like, yeah, if you actually plug in the system that's been designed to do this work already with non-cannabis plants, you can actually accelerate yourself to a level that is beyond and above anything that you sort of were doing in a basement with this, the stolen lights or whatnot. And I feel it's sort of a metaphor for, the same sort of the bureaucracies. We've just always been apart from these systems. We've always just had to build our own grow rooms on spec and jerry rig everything and MacGyver this and MacGyver that. And now it's kind of to the point where we've gotten to a seat at the table. Cannabis is so mainstream, I can't even tell you. I got off a flight the other day, and I get on the bus that's taking me to long-term parking. And, the guy across from me, I think he's works for Air Canada, but in fact, he's actually a broker of cannabis deals that I've sat at a boardroom in the last 2 weeks when I was in Nanaimo. And he's like, hey, didn't I just sit with you at a boardroom? And I'm like, oh my God, yeah. We started talking a little bit. He was like, oh, I was just out, talking with Mackey Investments in Toronto to get the deal done. And he's talking about all these different things. Well, he ends up getting off the bus, and the guy next to me, who's just this old dude, he's like, oh, are you in the marijuana business? And I'm like, yes, I am. And he's like, well, I do certification for all the big machinery, all the CO2 units and and I'm just sitting there going this is just fucking crazy at this point in time. There was 4 people on the bus, and 3 of them were all in the cannabis industry off of just a random flight. So it's a lot easier to open this discussion nowadays. Everyone seems to have it on their lips. you know, you want to open up a discussion with someone that even seems to be, maybe from back in the day, they might be an anti-cannabis person. You just crack that CBD, just that word, that term, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, are you talking about the CBDs? Well, I'm interested in the CBDs. It just makes me laugh. Even the whole term, the CBDs. It used to make me cringe. I have to admit, now it makes me laugh. I think it's
now I
cute.
see it printed in place, and it's just, oh God, it makes me shake my head. It's like, come on, people, there's only one. But as you were saying, though, you know, this change that we're talking about, people, takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. You know, it's taken us 20 years to get here, but how many of us have plugged in over these 20 plus years? You know, it took somebody like, you know, Skunkman Sam over there, you know, 50 plus years he's been doing this to arrive at this point. Hi, Skunkman.
Oh, Skunkman Sam's in the house. I didn't even see him sneak in. What's going on, Sam?
Silence, it seems.
So, send our prayers, if you will, positive thoughts to Forrest and Silas. Apparently, Silas has been having some nonstop seizures for almost 10 weeks now. So we'll send our positivity out to Silas and Forrest. And howdy, Sam. We're just sending positivity to Forrest and to Silas, his son, who's he hasn't been able to make it on Hash Church the last few weeks because he's been in it deep with Forrest, so with Silas, sorry. So we're thinking about you guys. And welcome to Dr. Mark, who also snuck in there while I was yammering away with Etienne.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
You know what? Pretty good. We got 471 viewers in the room. He might join us later here in the actual video chat. And in the meantime, yeah, just talking about cannabis, all these different things that are going on. Johnny B was mentioning here in Canada, we've got about 1 month till October 17th. I doubt the Liberal government's going to push it back further. What's that, Johnny?
Well, it's the 16th, so legalization's on the October 17th, so that's 31 days. And you know what? We know one thing. I don't think there will be one cannabis pot shop open legally across Canada on October 17th. Doesn't sound like any provinces or any municipalities are ready to even pull the trigger, and I don't think there's any government that even has a supply chain ready for these stores, to be honest. So
I think there's only 30 days. I think there's only 30 days in September.
Is it? Yeah. Well,
I'm not sure.
That's what I said.
30 to 31 days. 30 to 31 days. 30. That's kind of what I thought. I thought
fine, 30 days. 30 days. Well, it's a 30-day warning. Okay, let's smoke some.
It's the 30-day warning. That's better than the 1 minute warning for 420. But
but you know what? In 30 days, I mean, yeah. I mean, even with these roadside screening devices that now Quebec has completely said we're not going to get involved because even temperature kind of affects these things. But I mean, a lot of people are scared to drive.
I saw you post that one about the RCMP. We're going to be taking semen samples. You realize that was a fake news story, right?
I don't think I posted that one.
That was a MedTainer posted it. MedTainer Canada posted it.
Oh, was it? Oh, that's not me then.
I was like, oh, fake news. It's funny. It was a funny story, but it was people were like, what the heck? And then women were like, what are they going to do with us?
It's going to be interesting on what's going to happen on that end and stuff like that. I mean, hopefully officers will instead of using a machine, we'll go back to the standard roadside screening. I mean, you can tell if someone's intoxicated or not behind the wheel. It's not that hard to tell. And people who are medically using or are just using it just so they can actually have a better quality of life, you can tell that they're not intoxicated. So
I'm not too worried about it. I have to admit, I'm not. The reason I'm not worried about it is because it seems as though we're heading in the right direction, and all of these the worries of like, oh, the laws that are coming in are so bad. It's like, who the hell is ever going to get a 14-year sentence for something like having an ounce of weed, or, you know, passing a joint to someone that was like a year younger than them and under the age of 18 or something. It just seems like they're fear and scarcity laws that I can't imagine that lawyers like John Conroy and Kirk Toussaint and all these other cannabis lawyers, Jack Lloyd and Robert W.E. Laurie, they're just going to crush these clear breaches of the charter, like they've crushed all the other clear breaches of the charter. The unique thing about Canada is when we take these guys to court, we win, which is a seemingly impossible task. But I swear to God, it's not that hard, because if you were to hear them, and John can attest because he was there as well, if you hear some of the things that come out of these people's mouths that are testifying against cannabis at these hearings, they just sound so stupid that there's not really a judge on the planet that can't see through it completely. It's beyond ridiculous, some of the things that they say. And they end up, you know, borderline perjuring themselves to the point where it's just, you can't even take anything they say seriously. And they end up really building the case for us more than we build the case when we testify on our side. It's pretty. Apparently,
that's what happened last week with the dispensary case. He spent all week with, basically, their fight against us, and John figures he can wrap it up on Monday because just a lot of the stuff being said, people walked out of the room and stuff like that. Cannabis isn't medical. This accusation.
But again, this goes back to plugging in and doing it. If you guys, I know you say it sounds simple, but if you guys hadn't have sued and actually have done that, then nothing would have happened. So it just shows you that one case, you know, it is such an integral part of the change that is needed. So, you know, more of talking to the audience here than, you know, you awesome folks who are doing it, you know, but it's more of just to make them aware how they can still plug in and how important it is to plug in. You know, of course, going to court isn't cheap. It is easy, but it isn't cheap. You have to have lawyers. You have to have, you know, precedents, you know, things, simple things like that. But, you know, you can, as you say, you know, move the discussion. You're actually moving the line in the sand. You're out there holding these people accountable. This knowledge that we've learned as cannabis, you have to go out there and you have to talk to these people directly who are lying and counteracting their arguments directly. Because if not, if you don't do it, who else will?
Well, biggest thing right now is where patients can be able to access their medicine, and once they can, where they can be able to medicate with it. And if they're in low-income housing or anything like that, or there are no smoke-free zones, there's no place for patients to now go where they're able to at all these clubs that have existed now for years. So there's another fight along the way, and that's going to be able to consume cannabis in a safe environment other than your home that a lot of people aren't going to be able to safely consume, and which is low-income.
I predict we will win.
Oh, we will.
I predict we will win, and we will win like miles high. It's going to be like it's human rights acts again. You cannot tell someone they cannot medicate because of their condition, because they're in a wrong place of living, or they're walking. You know, give me a break. It's let's see what happens with court. But I mean, we're fighting here.
We're facing the same problems in the United States. You know, people don't have access. So now we have to have safe access zones, or safe access areas, such as just a dabbing lounge or some place where people can go. There's very few of them. I think they said there's only 7 in the United States currently, and there's currently millions of users in, you know, many legal states that just want access. So in Colorado, they had to win it at the local level in Denver, and in Las Vegas, they're looking at doing that. But it's a fight that is the next step past just gaining access to the plant. Now we have to have safe access and a harbor that we can be able to go to, that we can, you know, be social. You know, it's so key. It's such an integral part of this plant that is completely lost, unfortunately.
Well, on that point, I would like to shout out the gentleman in Malaysia who's currently facing being hung for producing and supplying cannabis oil to some hundreds of patients that he managed to acquire.
CBD oil, right?
Yeah, CBD oil. So he's you know, like we've come such a far away that, you know, on one sort of side of things, there are people like this gentleman who's facing death, which is, you know, we worry about access, but we don't have worries like that. You know, people can still practice civil disobedience and not end up being murdered for it. So you got to shout this guy out big time. I really hope that something gets done in regards to human rights, and that they don't end up hanging this guy for supplying cannabis oil, because it will be a nightmare story, as it often is when they hang people in Malaysia for being homosexual, or getting caught with drugs, or all these other just absolutely ridiculous zero tolerance policies. And that leads me into also shouting out Sarah Blythe from Vancouver, who recently had her cannabis taken from the Vancouver PD that she was supplying to opiate addicts. So it was for opiate addicts on the street who could use something as an alternative. So they go down there and they, sell or give cannabis away at cost. They don't make any profits whatsoever. And the PD, in all of their brilliance, thought the other day it would be a good idea to go and steal that. 4 stormtroopers deep come in and take the medicine off the table and walk away with it, strapped with guns. And it just seemed like, I haven't really seen the Vancouver PD do something that stupid in a long time. Generally, they're not too bad when it comes to cannabis and the cannabis laws. They usually just sort of turn their head the other way. But they went right in there and took away that cannabis off the table, generally while people standing in the very vicinity were selling fentanyl. Guaranteed that's where, wherever the addicts are, that's where the opioid and fentanyl dealers are as well. And that was just a real, Dana Larson posted about it. It got shared hundreds of times, the small video that Sarah made. And I just, shout out to her and the work that those guys are all doing on the streets of Vancouver. That's the front lines right there. That is the front lines on the war on drugs, for sure.
Today they're giving away packages to patients or anybody who's suffering from opioid addiction. So they're down on the east side again today, and we did talk about that on Cannabis Culture News Live. Dana talked about that. And yeah, they just walked in and grabbed it and walked away, and then came back and asked her, well, who's selling the fentanyl? I want to know that. Like, really never seen before in Vancouver, especially with all of the projects with Van Dulen and the east side of harm reduction over the years. We've been giving away cannabis for years and years to patients around there and people suffering, and they just walked in and walked away with it. It was absurd to see.
And we watched
it over and over. It's like, wow.
In the United States this week, a guy's mother was killed. He was being served a warrant for a marijuana arrest, and the mom tried to block, and she was killed by the police, shot and killed. So it's still happening, unfortunately. People are still dying from marijuana in North America. The stupidity is still ongoing. So I have to give a shout out to Michael Kravitz and them, who were doing work directly at the UN level. They've actually been working with the UN minor councils to arrive at education for them regarding cannabis. And within the next year, we may see a major change at the 1961 Convention Treaty, which has been an upholding of these heinous laws that have caused Malaysia to continue to execute people for something like cannabis or CBD.
So, Etienne, explain the 1961 treaty and how it's, because this is a big thing that's happening next year at the UN level.
Well, basically, if you receive any money from the United States government, you have to have a cannabis eradication program going on. And so the United States gives money to practically every country. And so by doing so, part of that law passed by Gabriel Nahas and them is to make sure that there is a cannabis eradication program going on. And so that has been the main stakeholder at the UN level that people have been utilizing to manipulate their country's situations, such as the gentleman being hung in Malaysia. And hopefully, if it is changed and removed at the UN level, of which they are talking, and it looks like it could be moving in that direction, it would strike that. And that would be a huge change, because they are dealing with the medicalization of cannabis and are in discussions regarding it, because it's not only happened in the United States and Canada, it's happened in multiple countries to the point where the UN had to take notice. So there are brave people down there that are going down all the time and are really challenging people at the UN level. What effect that will have, we hope that is positive. But again, this is something they've been working on for years, and this is part of that plugging in and being active thing that will affect change, but it's slow. And at the UN level, it's very, very slow. But the change is happening. people are there. They are challenging the system, but
yeah, and I think there's a couple of approaches. There's a couple groups that are working on essentially a medical exemption, because there's numerous UN countries have medical marijuana laws. Canada, and Uruguay have federal recreational laws in the works. So it makes sense. If you look at the slow transitional law, usually any state or federal or UN is going to pass medical before they pass over-the-counter drugs.
and you're seeing countries like France also starting to change their mindset.
Italy, yeah.
Right. And you have to understand that, France is basically the header for the EU. So what they decide, a lot of people will go. Same with Germany. And Germany now has medical cannabis. And so, France is going in that direction. You've got, of course, the Netherlands, which was really one of the first. So this momentum is building at not only a local, at a country, it's now at a UN level that it's very important, because it affects all the small countries as well as the big countries.
Under UN regulations, medical marijuana always has been legal. It was restricted, but not illegal.
Correct.
Yeah,
That was a quick way of leaving. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So we'll get back into it so the UN has always allowed medical marijuana to be produced and researched under specific federal guidelines. If every government is allowed to develop their own program, the U.S. decided to go with a program where they licensed the University of Mississippi to produce. And the issue with the U.S. is that combination of DEA, NIDA have to approve the investigative new drug program. That made it incredibly difficult for U.S. companies to actually research cannabis. But in other countries, there is some research in both cannabinoids and artificial cannabinoids, for better or worse. But ultimately, the UN has the ability to change the scheduling of cannabis on an international level, to treat it as a medical product or as a non-dangerous drug. Because ultimately, I think a lot of states are looking at it, treating it like alcohol, but in the long term, it's probably a safer drug than tobacco. So if we as humans need to treat drugs in different schedules based on their potential harm to society, and in all likelihood, you're going to see that general trend towards legalization. But it's a slow and steady progress, and unfortunately, especially at the UN, it only has these sessions once every couple of years, I believe. And this is going to be the first time that they actually have the ability to amend the singles treaty on Canada.
Yeah, the first time since 1961. So that's significant. That shows you the generations of change, but also the generations of oppression that we've lived under, which is beyond unfortunate.
Yeah, and if they don't get anything changed at this session next year, then it could be some time before it could get changed on an international level.
That window is narrow as well.
So all the viewers need to contact their politicians, get them, essentially understanding what's going on there, because that's something that, in order for the U.S. to release some of its oppression on the research of cannabis, we need to be able to accept cannabis as medical products so that they can be researched here in the States as well as international.
And so we can also share that research, and we can also cross borders and do that research. We can combine, one of the things we need to start doing is we need a germplasm institute here in the Americas. We have things that are acclimated over in Europe, et cetera. And we have, of course, seed companies, but we have no institutes that are actually saving the germplasm, testing it, making sure the terpene profiles are proper for what this genetic is, et cetera. Another thing that'll
University
happen,
of Mississippi has a monopoly on genetics, and that's unfair to the medical patients. Sue Sisley put out a paper that showed that UMIS is not even capable of producing flour that meets state regulations for recreational grade cannabis.
Or
So
or medical, because it fails molds and mildews.
Yeah. So, and it's something that the federal government, DEA, probably Jeff Sessions need to start issuing the 22255 licenses that are going to open up the having multiple cultivators for medical research products. That's going to allow state licensed cultivators across the U.S. to start supplying research at university levels. And then we're going to need university researchers and students at those universities to drive that research forward.
There's no way Jeff Sessions is going to do anything. Sorry, as much as I would love to believe.
No, I don't. It's trains left the building, and he's either left behind or gonna have to just get out of the way.
Oh, he'll get out of the way. It's just he's going to get run over by it. That's what's going to happen to a lot of these. Our momentum is too big.
Mississippi is 100% capable of producing the highest quality medical or recreational. That's not what they're contracted to do by the NIDA. They do what they're contracted to do, and the NIDA has never set these standards for them. And so, of course, they're not meeting them because they haven't been asked to. And I'm not saying that Mississippi State and Dr. Osole, who runs it, are the greatest people in the world. But to be honest, I like Dr. Osole, and he is in favor of medical cannabis, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm all for that research, and I'm glad that they've actually increased their canopy and increased their biodiversity of genetics. But ultimately, when you cultivate in one region in Mississippi, you're out either indoor or outdoor, but outdoor is where they do significant production field. You're limited on the terpenoids and cannabinoids that are produced just based on the environmental conditions. Because you have to select cultivars that can survive in that moist and warm climate, and then being a more southern latitude, it's going to be harder to produce higher levels of the rare cannabinoids that generally prefer the redder spectrums. I know when there's been some papers put out there that show that CBD strains grown at higher latitudes produce higher CBD ratios. So it's something that I think that being able to have gardens from multiple different terroirs is going to be able to produce a wider range of cannabinoid profiles that you can end up researching more medical conditions with.
Mississippi also discovered many of the cannabinoids with their research, and I feel conflict with Mississippi, but the truth of it is that Dr. Osole would have gone much further. He has a patent on THC suppository. I mean, he believes in it himself personally.
No, yeah, nothing against what they're doing at Mississippi. I've got a ton of respect for Osole, but Mississippi, UMiss shouldn't have a monopoly on the research.
And they're suing for that right now, and it's working its way through the system. There are people trying to challenge that in the United States. So it's just, it takes years to work its way through the system. It took me 5 years to sue the government and deal with them. So, change doesn't happen quickly. And then when you enter the realm of the courts, it's unpredictable and longer and more expensive than you all ever realize.
There is research that's being done on
someone's taking a bong rip
that's being legally purchased in legal states and being brought back to the laboratory and being researched. So you may not hear about it in the scientific literature, but there is research being done on commercial cannabis not grown in Mississippi.
Congratulations, doctor, on your cannabis patent this week.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations as well. And I want to welcome to the room Mr. D420K, as well as someone new who has never been with us that I've actually met online, which is RasTa Ronnie. is in the house as well. I don't know if he's still here, if he's frozen up, but I definitely wanted to welcome both of those fellows into the room.
Well, let's get a bong rip in. Get that out of the way. Bong rip, mother lovers. Let's do it.
Bong rip, mother lovers. You know, D, I met someone that
What's I didn't hear you, Mark.
Did you hear me, D? Now you're muted.
I muted, yeah. I can hear you when I muted myself.
All right. No, I met someone that reminded me of you the other day, dude. He was this. I met him out in front of Trev Dealey. He pulled up in this just fucking savage motorcycle, chopper, Grim Reaper all over it, you know, big muscular dude. Just looked like a dude that would like, you know, looked like a dude back in the day that I just wouldn't have approached and been like, hey, how's it going, man? What's going on? But I did. Anyway, I approached him. I was like, bro, I was like, dude, what's going on, man? Your bike is awesome. Like, holy shit. He was like, oh, thanks, brother. Thanks. And I just sort of walked away, went inside the motorcycle shop and finished doing what I was doing. He said, hey, brother, tell me about your bike. Tell me about yourself. So I started telling him a little bit about my bike and how it was my dad's, and he ended up passing away on it, and I restored it. And he was like, oh, man, that's unbelievable. What a great way to visit. You know, I visit with some people that way as well on my bike. Then he tells me that he runs a camp called Camp My Way, and it's for soldiers and first responders who suffer with PTSD. And he takes these guys out into the forest, and he takes them canoeing and paddleboarding and fishing and just basically camping to unplug and get away from all the sort of pressures of social media and the pressures of society. And he actually yesterday he did a poker run from Trev Dealey to Squamish up to Whistler and back. I wasn't able to make it because it was my son's birthday and it was pouring rain, but man, at 3 o'clock, I went out in my truck and I saw them all driving back from Whistler in the pouring rain. The guy was right up in front on his Grim Reaper bike. And I just thought, man, this guy, his name's Terrence. He was telling me how he lived homeless. He was addicted to drugs. He lived on the streets of Hastings in Maine for 3 years. And the guy just was totally ripped and healthy looking. And he was like, you know, it's people like us that have to suffer and walk this road that can go back and help the people that are walking on this road right now. And I was just like, tons about him reminded me about you. Like he had a different life, but a similar life. And he was just like, now he's like, man, I'd rather hug people than hurt people. And I was like,
I know exactly how you feel, man. It amazes me how you pull this stuff out of people. Complete strangers. We've sat in Vancouver on a bench on the side of the fucking sidewalk, and strangers have come by and smoking, and the guy just these people sit down, and Mark just takes them out of, you know, takes them into gets shit out of them that just you would not be offering to people completely, right? And it's pretty amazing, and the lifestyle, you know, with him doing that for the soldiers, and man, that is so great. I got so many buddies I'd love to turn them on to right here in my own town that I help with. And you know, I gotta put this in here. This summer, my dad bought a motorcycle, and he bought himself a brand new big fucking Decker CVO, and me and him and my bro Chance, we did a 6,000 kilometer ride this summer in August up to Dawson City, then down to Rupert. We went through fires. We went through all the smoke, went through the good stuff, the bad, some rain. 8-day trip. We did 6,000 kilometers, and I had fucking 200 joints rolled up, and I came home with about 13.
Dude, that's amazing that your dad pulled that off.
Buddy, I said to him first, I'm like, okay, you know, like a month before, I'm like, okay, if you start getting tired or anything like that, don't worry about it. Just, we can pull over anytime. We get a hotel in the afternoon. All he goes, fucking don't worry about me, kid. I'm worried about you guys keeping up with me. He's almost 60. Okay. And he was leading us. Like, we'd all take turns being in front. when he was in front, he was doing 150, 160 steady, just fucking honking on it. We were going slower than him. He did fucking great, man. Not one problem, not one hiccup, not a sore back, nothing. It was beautiful, man.
Well, I would just say to those of you out there that don't ride motorcycles, you know, riding a motorcycle for 6,000 kilometers is serious business. That is no joke. You could weed out the week real quick on something like that.
In 8 days, we did that.
But I bet you've had guys in 3 days turn around and go back.
Dude, we've had guys that the first night, the first leg of the trip, come up with so many excuses the next morning. Yeah, I got to get back to this. I just like, you know, dude, don't worry about it. It's okay if you can't handle it. I'd have more respect for you if you looked at me and said, fuck this, I ain't doing this, instead of feeding me the bullshit fucking, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. Well, what do you mean? You're packed up. You're ready for 6 days with us. Come on. Be honest. It don't matter. I'll give you a hug and fucking see you off, man. But no, we've rode in some unbelievable conditions, monsoons. I've ridden in the fucking mountains in snow and, you know, both feet down on the ground, still cruising because you can't stop. Don't turn around, you know. It's amazing. We've been on some rides, Mark, that, you know, Mark rides right beside, you know, we're cornering everything. When you're riding like that, you're with your bros and it's beautiful, man. We're going across Canada next summer.
I gotta admit, I love it myself. I definitely really enjoy it. I've always had a connection with motorcycles, and there's something about being on the big Harleys with your bros, like flying down the road, even with just D420K, going down the Sea to Sky Highway, going 100+ K, you know, 14 to 18 inches apart from one another on the highway and just ripping around turns. It feels amazing. It's empowering.
Yeah, and you know, like for me, it's therapy, man. Like, you know, I get anxiety every day and I deal with all that stuff and all that. Getting on a bike, 2 gears, it's gone. And I got my bike 106 this year. It's a fucking hot rod and it goes like fucking crazy. I love it. I was really impressed with the motor work done by my buddy at Excalibur Cycles in Prince George. A little plug.
That's awesome. Oh my God. How about go ahead, Etienne.
Have you guys seen this?
I don't know. What is it? You holding up a green vial?
Not yet.
This is a
Oh yes. Yes.
It is a amazing book on the evolution of glass pipe and its artists, and it breaks down. It's not every great artist, but it's quite a few of a lot of them.
Dude.
Of some of them.
Look at that one. I just saw the Ease one. There's the Ease one that was blown for our gallery show in 2003, the Degenerate Art Show that Slinger and I threw.
So who made the first glass pipe?
Oh, that goes back. Probably the earliest glass makers, I would assume. You know,
I bet you can tell us
in the 70s, I was in Afghanistan in 71, and they broke a Coca-Cola bottle off and made a chillum out of it. But I'm sure there was glass pipes before that.
Well, I give it up to Snodgrass for sure, at least in our culture, in our community, the touring, Grateful Dead, Fish type culture. Snodgrass seemed to be one of the first promoting and popularizing color-blown glass that changes colors and shows different patterns as you get it darker and whatnot. And we'll have to have Snodgrass on one day when we do our glass church.
That's more sophisticated glass. Yeah. I just meant glass, period.
Well, he was a start. I mean, you would basically say Bob Snodgrass is the start of the American and the North American glass scene. His pipes that were going out and around, you know, they were spoken about in hushed tones back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was seeing these pipes and they were thousands of dollars back then. And we're like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of, you know, money, people. But they were the most amazing, beautiful first of his kind. And of course, then he taught others. And now this is what it's, you know, evolutioned into, you know, that's Scott Deppie, you know, right there, you know, which is, you know, Mothership, which is, you know, I heard that's changed, you know, Jake is no longer with them. And Scott's not an owner; he's a worker there now. That's
trippy.
Yeah, things change, but the art and everything, I highly recommend. I think you find it on online, but This is a Pipe is an amazing book with great photography, which gives just a great visual history of the current masters that are out there and available for you to go find. You know, a lot of these shops, you know, that are popping up and around that have also changed with glass. They're available. There's amazing pieces of art that are available in practically every city USA now, as well as in Canada.
Listen, it's full circle. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, I remember going back to the 70s, the famous steamroller, which was nothing more than a glass tube. It was a pipe, right? And it had a little bowl on the side of it. So I think if I remember correctly, that was the first time I ever smoked out of anything that was just all glass. So the all glass steamroller, which I remember being quite popular. And that to me like led to like the one hitter. But I think for designer pipes, you're absolutely right. Bob was the.
I remember those, Mark.
Yeah.
And I used to use a do roll, toilet paper roll to do the same thing because I like to be able to throw them away afterwards. I used to.
Yeah, I will say this much about the steamroller. Nothing created more dead smoke in a pipe than the steamroller. That was some like lick you so hard, you fill that thing up and then take a break and then go to hit it again. And it was just like razor blades, like in your throat.
So like, dirty and so resiny, and it would be so cool that you could
so oxygenated.
Yeah, isopropyl alcohol just to clean it out completely. Have a completely clean piece of glass again. So yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm glad things have changed for the better for everybody, needless to say. Oof.
Hey, Sam.
Yes?
Can we tell the story about the pipes that you used to clean your pipe in?
What's this now?
Your sink that you have in your bedroom. That
you can tell that, or should I?
Oh, dude, I'll tell you. Listen,
what I did was I would.
Sam is just epic on every level. Without even trying, he's just epic on every level. Dude, that story. Go ahead, tell it.
I clean my glass bongs with boiling hot water from a saucepan that I boil, and Dr. Barner's, and then I flush it down the sink. I have a sink in my bedroom because the apartment I have actually was a hotel, and they had sinks in each bedroom so that either you could piss in them or wash your face or something. And so I was doing this for years, and after about 5 or 10 years, the sink just wouldn't drain at all anymore. I tried sticking a rooter down there. I tried different lye compounds to eat it away. And finally, I just gave up and didn't use it for about a year. And then I called the plumber, and he came, and he shoved a snake down there. And he says, "What is all this black shit?" Because it was dried and sort of almost like hard and glassy that was chipping off the walls. And the entire what was really funny was about another 5 or 10 years later, he had to do it again.
Dude, like the whole pipe was just almost solid of resin.
I'm surprised you didn't save it and test it and smoke it.
No, I'm pretty convinced I knew what it was. It was crapola.
I bet you it was the highest quality crapola the world has ever seen.
CBN love for days.
Just like pure cannabinoid, like destruction, like whatever. Like Sam's hash to this day, no one's ever put anything in my pipe that's like it. I'm telling you, it's like the first time you smoke it, you're literally like, this must be from Mars. This is from another fucking planet. This is not of this earth. How could it be so strong? It's like right away you're like, is there like something else in here?
It was a bit easier to do that, you know, a decade or more ago when there wasn't so much competition out there. Now, lots of people are making incredibly potent materials. the secret of mine was it was dry sift and it was really terpene rich naturally. And
well, I think the fact that you lived in all the hash producing countries, collected the seeds, grew them out and bred them, grew those and made hash. I think there's a longer story to why it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I just have to say that without a doubt, some of the strongest cannabis that I've ever smoked was with Sam. And the reason why I started blending and creating my blends was because there was nothing I could find as strong, hands down, that really, for one hit or two hits, that really put you really where you needed to be. My
favorite story was the time I measured 1 gram and stuck it in a glass. They call them oil pipes because you put the oil in them and then you heat the glass from underneath and then you can take draws on them. Well, I did the same thing, but I put in my dry sift, gave it to Rob Clark. He took an enormous fucking hit like the carburetor hit and then looked at me and went, he couldn't breathe, he couldn't talk. And I'm thinking, fuck. I killed Rob Clark with marijuana. After about more than a minute of wheezing, he finally was able to take breath. He said what had happened is he had taken so much vapor that all of his little lung hairs got coated and they were all stuck together and he couldn't get any fucking oxygen.
Oh my God. Yeah, you guys told me that story, and him telling the story of being on all fours while he was doing it made it even funnier.
Yeah, unfortunately, because I'm such a mean person, I was laughing at him the whole time.
I'll tell you, some of that would have made incredible footage. Like, you guys would have had the most incredible reality TV show, even though it would have been ahead of its time. Like, to be able to watch today some of these things, like you giving out those goo balls for the Queen's Day celebration in Holland, like a gram of dry sift in one ball. Like that's a heroic dose.
Yeah, it wasn't even in the ball when I gave Rob. It was completely dry sift powder. And
yeah, well, he was smoking it, right?
Yeah, and we heated it from underneath, and it just turned into a liquid pool and just bubbles the fuck. And he didn't quite finish it, but he tried.
No, I was talking about those balls, those goo balls you used to make.
Oh, you're talking about the hash cocoa
correct. Correct. I called them goo balls.
Those had 0.5 gram of THC or 1 gram of THC, depending on the versions. But yeah, a lot of people would eat 1 or 2 of them and they couldn't walk. I warned everybody really carefully before they ate any. But if you want to eat 3 or 4, I'm giving to you.
Oh my God. Like the woman at Breeder Steve's wedding who told me, I'm from Jamaica, I'll need 2 of those brownies. Less than an hour later, she's on a gurney getting taken out. I feel like I'm flying. That's what she said as she wheeled her by with her arms in the air, bringing the brown, just looking at me matter-of-factly and saying, well, I'm from Jamaica, give me 2. And I was like, all right, like, if you want, there's a ton of bud in these brownies, but 3 people got sent to the hospital that
way at Adam Dunn's birthday parties in
right
park, down by his THC place.
Yep.
I can remember almost every single birthday party that I attended was handing those out. That there would be people laying in the grass and they weren't getting up.
Yeah, that's I've always said it kind of as a joke, but I maybe think that it's not a joke. But you could possibly give someone a high enough dose of edibles and then like operate on them.
No doubt.
I think the Chinese used to do that.
That shit puts you. I've seen people be out for like 30 plus hours, like using a mirror to check to see if they're still breathing. Like barely, like the heartbeat slows down so much. Everything is so slow. It's incredible.
Well, when I had surgery, I took about like think it was like 600 milligrams, and they had to do with the anesthesiologist had to know exactly how much weed I was taking because I was eating a lot of cannabis, as you know, before my surgery. So they had to figure out how much they'll put me under. Maybe, I don't know, but damn, it was a good surgery.
I bet. Yeah, getting knocked out. Hey, RasTa Ronnie, how are you doing, brother?
Yo, I'm good. Hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man, I can hear you. Welcome.
Yeah, bless up. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm happy to be on here with the panel. Some good guests I've always watched, always seen since day one at Hash Church. So it's really nice to be on, representing Colorado out here. You know. So. Yeah,
man. Well, you know, from what I know of you, you're a cannabis warrior. You seem to fight for the plant.
Yeah, man. I'm you know. It's kind of been a long time as far as being in the industry. I've been at this since like 2010. Started off with Native Roots, had a hash company, RasTa Bubble, for a couple years, and, you know, did the solventless thing, really grinding out, trying to put that on the map, educate people on good, conscious, clean cannabis, you know. So that's kind of where I've been. The last couple of years have been like ups and downs as we've seen like the industry changing here in Colorado as far as going from, you know, from that mom and pop shop to more of the Walmart mentality. A lot of companies coming and going in the solventless world and just a lot of changes going on. And I'm happy to still be in it and still have a voice. So that's kind of primarily why I wanted to get on here and like, you know, spread my story and show some love to everybody. You know, I think more love is needed in this cannabis community. It's a pretty vast community once you start thinking about it and how far it reaches. So, you know, we all play a role, I guess. So give thanks.
Absolutely, man. Well, I always thought of you also as a bubble ambassador. You were always making the fire bubble.
Oh yeah. You know, that's when I got put on. You know, with Native Roots, the owner of that shop at the time had, you know, when the cannabis industry started here in Colorado, it was a lot of people that knew each other, and they're all coming from the same backgrounds, primarily of being, you know, trust fund kids or having a lot of extra money or being able to get involved and be able to afford to get involved in the industry. So everybody really knew each other. And so with that, I was able to network enough to start, you know, brushing up on the solventless aspect of it. I was actually looking to get out of the industry at the time when I was working with Native Roots, and the owner came to me and he goes, "Hey man, you're not going anywhere." He goes, "You're way too valuable. You're way too much of a people person. We're going to start a company." He's all, "You're the RasTa. It's Bubble Hash. We're going to call it RasTa Bubble." You know, started up the Instagram, put my head down for about 2 years and really tried to grind away at it. And one of my first 11 followers was you. So that was huge for me. Because I was, you know, once I checked out the page, I was like, whoa, this is the man right here. You know, and that kind of started off. I had a lot of clutch people around me that helped me, you know, that I could look to mold my my talents and my artistry a little bit better. So, you know, hats off to all those, you know, pioneers and people that have been putting in the work. You know, like I said, like Mila, Bubbleman, Nicotine, Trichome Heavy, you know, Dab Logic, all these people, you know, around me locally too, not just, you know, internationally, but that had a big influence on the direction I saw myself going. And, you know, that's just, I'm really blessed just to be involved with cannabis. It's really changed my life in a lot of ways. So, you know, give thanks.
That's awesome, dude. Absolutely. Well, you know what? My sort of mission statement in 2018 is to bring back the full melt. You know, Solventless Mind is one of the last people really just pumping the bubble bags hard. There's still people doing it here and there. Some great hash makers, as you just mentioned, and Kenwall and many others. I just want to see it grow again. I want to see more people making fire water hash. Not, you know, I see people all the time, they're like, "Oh, I just want to make some nice bubble to squish for rosin." And I'm like, dude, you should want to make some nice bubble so it comes out 6 stars so you don't have to squish it for squish, you know, the rest. But it's like when you get that top level hash, it's like some photos behind here. It's just a pleasure to enjoy that. Same with the sift. I actually smelled sift today. A little bit was gifted to me from a friend.
Yeah, fire, bro, for sure. Yeah, you know, I feel the same way. I think here in Colorado, we're seeing that reemergence of solventless. We always go through our ups and downs, you know, with what's latest and greatest and what's trending, you know, from rosin to distillate. And now, you know, the vape world seems to be taken over as far as the vape pens, and trying to incorporate rosin and solventless into that world is kind of the new wave of things. But here in the last couple of weeks, I've been hearing a lot of people speak about bringing back, you know, that good old solventless hash and using it as a staple in their shops. And not just that, but this idea of more organic and more clean medicine has taken hold, because we talked about it years ago that eventually the bottom's going to fall out as we get to this Walmart mentality, that the mom and pop shops that are doing the real quality work and doing real clean medicine are going to have a foothold and be able to stand out as long as they put in the work to get there. And I'm hearing more about it as of recent, this idea and this, you know, so I kind of feel we're at the forefront of this change of more boutique shops, you know, the craft versus micro.
Did he freeze up on me?
He froze up.
Yep.
All right. I think he was out in a greenhouse or something. Well, hopefully he comes back. Hey, I wanted to welcome Wade to the room as well, or at least Wade's forehead.
Yes, Wade's here, listening in, grateful. Good to see you guys. Yeah, I wanted to check in about inspiration, which was your suggestion on topic today. I'm feeling really inspired this morning. We had a big event yesterday here on the farm. The International Cannabis Farmers Association is a group of outdoor growers who are really focused on data and how it relates to regulation in the California marketplace. And yeah, we had about, I don't know, 40 people come to the farm, and I just want to put it out there, icfa.farm. And then there's another thing going on, Sun and Earth certification. There's a suggested set of guidelines for what appellations of origin and a certification process, if you will, that's all about regenerative practices. I'm pretty thrilled to see what they've done. And like I said, I'll put it up on the group chat thing. Would that be the thing to do, Marcus? Instead of trying to repeat it again?
Yeah. You can put it into this chat. You can put it into the other chat. We can put it on the Facebook page. We can get it out there.
Okay. And yeah, it doesn't cost anything to be a member. What they're really looking for is feedback from small farmers about how the regulatory framework in California, at least, is working out. But literally internationally, we'd love to hear from people about if they think that the Sun and Earth certification protocols, for example, would work on commercial scale. I'm pretty convinced they are. It's basically a good description of dragonfly earth medicines practices. Go ahead, Sam.
I have a question for you, Wade.
Yeah.
When people are doing appellations, I hear this all over Northern California especially, but most of them are growing in man-made soils, or they're digging big holes which they're filling with other soil. So how can you get an appellation if you're not using the native earth? I've often wondered this.
I couldn't agree more, especially when you see appellations as the model that's being used in wine, where it has everything to do with terroir, the soil. Sun and Earth certification does include a terroir component, but it's also really focused on cultivars. It's really focused on practices, the approach that you use to generate your the amendments you need on your farm. For years, I've been doing ferments and composts and vermiculture and harvesting mushrooms from spots on the property, all about trying to create our own amendments here on the farm. That way we know that cannabis, because it's a bioaccumulator, doesn't accumulate any problematic materials from things you're bringing in from another supplier. Like you were saying, Sam, if you're buying dirt or soil, how do you know what's actually in that soil? You don't. But if you're making it yourself,
even more so, it's not typical terroir from that area.
Well, yes. One of the factors that I think is going to be played up in cannabis is environmental conditions. How different environmental conditions affect different versions of cannabis. Certain cultivars flourish in some environments and other cultivars do not. You've spoken about that before. Just look at fungus resistance, for example. So part of appellations is, like I say, as you were saying, the native soils. Part of it is practices, and because if you, like here in Nevada County, there's quite a few people who work in pots, large pots that are in the ground, but because the ground here, a lot of the county is old mine tailings. This is gold country. All the rocks got dug up and crushed here 100 years ago. And there are large areas of the county where it's just vast rock fields. You can literally see them in satellite views. But there are other places where there's incredibly rich soil. We happen to be fortunate enough to have found one of them. And by adding to the diversity in the soil and into the diversity of the plants and wild insect native life of that size scale, if you will, what I found is once you find the right cultivars, the plants flourish. You know, integrated pest management is a lot easier when you've got the plants that are right for the situation you're in. So I think that's part of appellations. Another part of appellations is the historical culture, the actual history, multi-generational history of cannabis work in Northern California. So
also the local weather is really, really important.
Yes, exactly, Sam. So that's kind of inspiring to me. I really feel like it is one path forward that allows small farmers to have a chance to actually survive in the marketplace that already exists here in California. And so I want to change the subject now because that's a very depressing subject, the whole regulated market in California. Bubble bags. I love the bubble bags, Marcus. Thank you. It's a gift to all of us. And for me in my life, it's, again, if you're talking about small farmers, if you educate yourself on how to use the bags and what you're actually doing in that process, you can make extraordinarily high quality end material if your beginning source material is of quality and you handle it properly every step of the way. And that they're beautiful design, home scale, high quality manufacturing technique. And that's pretty far out. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. I made a batch the other day for the first time in a while, actually. I was doing an online course that I'm doing over at Ganja Talks University. It was a Brazilian guy that contacted me and said, hey, you know, the people in Brazil could really use this information, but they really kind of require it in Portuguese. So they did Portuguese subtitles for these videos, and I did 3 of them so far on Bubble Hash. And then yesterday was the live demo for that module of the course. And the course gives you the 3 bubble bag videos plus the live demo. Then it gives you 3 dry sift videos plus a live demo. Then it gives you 3 rosin videos and plus a live demo. So that'll be the full solventless course that I'm doing with Ganja Talks. And yesterday or 2 days ago, was the first live demo video. So I made some bubble hash. Flav gave me a ½ pound of some beautiful bud that turned out to be really nice, melty stuff. Pretty dark, but really, really nice. Probably going to puff a little bit.
But before Marcus was distributing bubble bags and a few other folks, the truth of it was nobody had really, really, really clean hashish. I mean, you could buy imported hashish, but to find it as clean as you could make it home.
Hey guys and gals, I love you all, but I'm gonna have to head out here. So I'll see y'all next time. And just to give a heads up, I'm gonna be at the State of Cannabis Conference 2.0 on September 25th and 26th on the Queen Mary in Long Beach. So if y'all, anybody, you know, so come on down if you're able to. Much love to you guys, and I'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, Etienne. Good to chat with you. Good to have you in. And yeah, I agree, Sam. It was the truth. That was the sort of amazing thing, to be lucky enough to be in that position to release the bubble bags around 1999. Isolator bags had just come out in 1998. At the end of that year, bubble bags came out at the start of 99. And it was just a unique thing to be able to teach people how to create hash that was just, you know, the ultimate bragging rights, so to speak, to have this quality of hash that was just liquefying and melting and bubbling in a way that no one had really ever seen before.
Anybody could make dry sift at that time too, but nobody was making it very clean. I mean, I was, but very few people were making it where it would melt and bubble. And you could easily do that with your bubble bags.
Well, and it was indeed your dry sift that got me sort of before water hash was even a thing. It was in 1995 that my first cup that I was there with, although I ended up smoking some, I didn't know at the time that it was your sift, but Rob had it. And I think it was at that old Thai food restaurant that we used to go to, the small one that Rob would always take people to. And I remember hearing him on the stairs say, if it don't bubble, it ain't worth the trouble. And just like watching this hash bubble and drip through the screen and drip down the down stem of the roer. And I was just like, what the fuck? And that sat with me for a couple of years, kind of trying to figure out, like, what was that? Like, how did they have hash that melted into a liquid? You know, before it existed, it was kind of an impossible thing to wrap your head around. And it wasn't until seeing the isolator bags, you know, 3.5 years later, and then coming out with our own bags and starting to see further, that we realized, holy smokes, like this is a real, an enormous amount of friendships for me around the world. That's for sure. That's how I met D420K, I'm sure, actually.
Yep. Overgrow.com.
Ah, yes. Good old
You moderated a little argument between me and someone else and said, come on down to the melting point if you're in Vancouver and puff tough with me, D420K. So nice. I did. Yeah. Yeah. And you smoked that fucking volcano. I tried that volcano. You put some real ugly leaf in there that was old and gave me a big bag of that. And it was like, holy shit, does this ever fucking taste good? And that was the first time I spent money like that on something that I smoked on. I think it was like, fuck, I think back then they were like $1,400 or
I'd say it was at least 1,000 Canadian for sure, maybe 1,200. They were expensive.
I bought one. That was that.
Yeah, you did. Pretty much everyone I blazed down, especially with that little trick, right? Because of course I had better bud. I just wanted to show people the sort of power of this little tool where you could just put something in that was seemingly didn't look that good and just vaporize the resin off of it and get a super tasty rip. That was a long time ago. That was 15 years ago.
Yeah, I that's how I sold the volcanoes out of the store I had up here in Prince George. I had a shitty bag of Sweet Island skunk that was in the leaf in a bag forever, and I just have a bowl with that, and they just, holy shit, I gotta buy one of these.
Oh, we're getting the wind in the mic. Welcome back, Rastarani. I did just mute you because you got the wind there. Were you in a greenhouse, by the way?
Yeah, I'm actually at work. Yep, greenhouse, hybrid model, definitely supplemental lighting.
Nice.
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, it's really nice to get back to this emergence of solventless, at least the talks of it coming back, and a real clean product for the consumers and for the patients out there. That's kind of what I based my whole energy off of when I started with Native Roots. Like I said, the owner was like, hey, you're the RasTa, it's bubble hash. You know, we're going to start a company called RasTa Bubble. So I put my head down for like 2 years, really focused on making that better, making that a real thing. And like I said, like certain key things, there was something that I caught YouTube. I think it was a YouTube video of Bubble Man at high times, you know, getting people lifted off of his hash and like showing them the process off of, you know, drying on the cardboard. And there was a couple key things that you said, and one of them being he said, if everybody's doing it, it's probably wrong. And that was key. It stuck out for me as far as part of my technique, and it really changed my game as far as like my drying technique and the actual end product. So, you know, hats off to you for the advice. And, you know, that type of stuff is crucial. I think the information that we share, like via Hash Church and just in general, is key for anybody and all people to like be consuming clean cannabis. I think is the goal in the long term. You know, we want to put good medicine out for people, not just stuff that's going to sell.
Absolutely.
RasTa, could you tell us how you do your curing technique, your drying technique?
Yeah, well, it's kind of changed, or at least evolved over some time, just with introduction of the freeze dryer. You know, I did a 7-day cure process from actual washing to 24-hour like drying on racks, parchment paper, then would go into a cold room for a good, you know, walk-in freezer for a good 6-7 days, and then I'd revisit it. And then if you're talking commercially, then I would go into gram jars, glass gram jars, and from the parchment, if we were going into like a commercial aspect. But if it's like for personal head stash or anything like that, I go into mason jars, just small, you know, deep dish, low mason jars. But like with the freeze dryer commercially, that's kind of changed the game as far as, you know, rosin pressing and being able to keep up to speed. For me, myself, I put up a lot of numbers here in Colorado as far as making hash by myself. I've never really worked with a team. I might have somebody that might gram my hash out for me or help me do like certain tasks, but nothing as far as the process and production of it. It's always been me and trying to put up high scale numbers. And that's the thing with Native Roots. As we got to from one store to 8 stores, quality became an issue. You know, because it's not just me dealing with the product, but when it goes to the bud tenders and how they store it at the shop, where it's being stored, how it's being stored, all those things come into a part. And then also, you know, as we scale up, it seems like quality becomes, you know, less of an importance and quantity becomes more of the importance. So that reflects in the concentrates for sure. And not something that I, you know, typically want to go by. I prefer quality over quantity all day. So yeah, you know, and with that said, in the last couple of years, the dynamics of the industry changing. Like I said, solventless is kind of, you know, taking a back seat when it came to rosin, and then rosin's taking a back seat when it came to the sauces and the diamonds and, you know, and the distillate. So it's nice. Like I said, I've been hearing more talks here locally amongst owners and shop owners and patients that really want to see this reemergence of just good quality solventless hash, regardless if it's fresh frozen or if it's dry. I mean, I think the idea of like, you know, a pure form of concentrate is what people are leaning towards, you know, less chemicals.
Absolutely. Fucking thank you very much, man. That's just some good information right there. How about your dry sifting? Are you doing any static tech with that, with the paint rollers? I've been seeing that, and I haven't tried the paint roller technique with the static tech. I've tried everything else with the static tech, every kind of material with the static tech, but the paint roller. I've had quite a few messages saying, hey, try the paint roller, make a video of it, all that kind of stuff. Have you done that?
Yeah, no, I haven't. Actually, you know, I did get a set of dry sift screens, which I was working with for probably a good 6-7 months. And to me, dry sifting is kind of like the Zen extract, as far as like, you know, I find myself, I can just get caught lost up in the process alone. It's almost like doing a bonsai tree for me. You know, it's real meditation, and to find, you know, repress through the screens. Like once I get to the lower mesh screen, a repress through the screen. But as far as static tech, I never got an opportunity to really try it. I know Cuban kind of hit me off with like his tech, at least what, you know, the steps of what to go by. So when I got my screens, I messaged Cuban hit me up. He's like, try this, this, and this. And then he recommended the static as well, but I just never got a chance to apply it.
Oh, do it, man. Do it.
Yeah,
It changed the game for me. Like it changed the whole game for me. 100%.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely we'll probably get to it here pretty soon. I'm kind of down harvest. I've relocated. When I was with Native Roots, I got a job opportunity. It was kind of one I couldn't refuse. They wanted to pay my rent for a year, moved me out to Glenwood Springs. I worked out of Aspen for about 3 years. A real culture shock for me and my family, but a real great opportunity, just the experience to be on that side of the state, kind of a part of Colorado I'd never seen before. But with that said, the pulse of the industry and what drives the industry and kind of the energy that I came from really wasn't out in that area or that side of the state. So I kind of brought that energy with me out there, and helped open several MIPS, and, you know, working in another greenhouse that was doing organics, organic growing. So I've learned a lot in the last 3 years, which didn't so much revolve around solventless, but more on a whole level of cannabis and how to function and operate within this industry and be successful at it and not compromise.
Right on, man.
Cool.
Well said. Well spoken. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to welcome Eric to the room. I see he's come in under the name Bridget, but we're going to call him Eric today.
It's my loaner computer.
Nice. How's it going, dude?
It's going good. How you guys been?
Fall here, summer's winding down, and it's starting to get rainy, and I guess we'll get that for a couple of months until the snow starts falling, and then it's mountain culture all winter long: sledding, snowboarding, skiing.
Yeah, I took our boat out of the water yesterday, and I was like, oh, it's so bittersweet to, you know, close the summer out, pull the boat out, and then I'm like, oh, it's time to tune up the snowboards and get all that gear ready now. So.
Yep.
You know, it's bittersweet to say goodbye to summer, but winter's always fun too. But yeah, I've been having an exciting time lately. I've been traveling a lot, going to lots of different greenhouses, and I got to check out the Loud Pack greenhouse last week and a bunch of others in the Monterey County area. And I actually finally found some really clean grows. I was surprised that Monterey area, you can find a lot of the cannabis plants are covered in dust. And besides other things too, but it's a real dusty area I found. And so I was able to actually Loud Pack's one of them. And there's another farm over in Salinas that I was really impressed, like dust free, really clean, testing clean, all these good things happening. So it was kind of fun to finally see some progress, I guess you could say, out there.
Damn, testing clean and Salinas. I've never heard those two things in like 1 sentence.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know how common that is, but it's definitely happening, and it's far and few between. But yeah, it was a fun trip. I saw a lot of glass greenhouses, polycarbonate greenhouses, the acrylic covers. Like, got to see all kinds of stuff. So I'm learning a lot as I go. And I missed Wade last night. I didn't realize that was your house, Wade. I was busy pulling the boat out and all that other stuff, and I didn't get a chance to come to that meeting for the Appalachians. It was kind of, I found it last minute, so I've been meaning to call you back, Wade, and talk about that.
Yeah, those folks left. That's why I was late getting on church this morning. But and I spoke about it earlier. I'll fill you in next time I see you. I'm pretty excited about it. There's a CDFA is doing the first scoping meeting down in Sacramento, or not the first, but one of the series of scoping meetings they're doing on Appalachians is happening Wednesday down in Sacramento. And I'm going to make a road trip, get in the car and go do down there. They're going to do a heritage rally on preservation of culture, and then the scoping meeting from 1 to 4.
Yeah, maybe I can make that. I'm not sure, but yeah, I definitely want to catch up with you on that now that I'm back.
Okay, cool. Let's talk later.
Sounds good.
One thing I was talking about earlier also was about I was really given chops about bubble bags and what a difference they'd made and how accessible to small farmers high quality concentrates are now as a result. And I mean, it's been that way for a long time, but it was really one of the first ways that you could harvest trichomes and get high purity. So yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Bubble Man on the bubble bags for sure. I feel like it's kind of the Burton of hash bags. You know, it's accessible for everyone and anyone. It's gotten to that point that, you know, we can all use it. And I mean, it's, you know, virtually, you know, the same process can be done for anyone. And I think that's what's dope about it is that, you know, we should be all more supportive of each other, you know, especially with people doing good work and quality work, not so much that competition mentality, but, you know, it is what it is. You know, the strong will survive, but you got to be supportive of those that are doing good work as well. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You got to. It's the Bubble Ambassadors pushing the message out there. Clean, unadulterated cannabinoid highs. My very favorite. I'm always happy when people are puffing on the full melt. I'm extra happy when people say, hey, Bubble Man, you want to smoke some hash? And they pull out full melt. I'm like, actually, I really do want to smoke your hash. I was at Vans. I went into Vans the other day, the shop with my 4-year-old son. And I'm walking around in there and I hear from across the store, this guy go, Bubble Man? And it was like one of the guys that worked there. And he's like helping a woman with her like 12-year-old son. And he's like, I'll be right back. And he runs across the store to me and my son. And he's like, dude, I'm a huge fan of the solventless quiver. I love bubble hash and dry sift and rosin. I just wanted to thank you. It was quite an amazing feeling, actually. I was like, right on, dude. I'm a huge fan of the solventless quiver. It's like just being able to sort of, have people recognize just from a shirt, even wearing something like this, the 90 micron shirt. Generally, people will see that if they're in the know and kind of give you that sort of like, I like the 90 micron. It's just awesome.
When we were in the airport meeting my brother and sister, those people came up to us.
That's right. That's right. I do. Yeah,
it happens a lot when we're together too. It puts a huge smile on my face too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny, right? It's just nice to have like-minded people. It's kind of like being at a fish show without being at a fish show, where just like random people can come right out of this huge crowd of people and be like, hey, I like the full melt. You like the full melt? Absolutely. Love the full melt. Maybe I'll have a puff of some full melt right now.
We've blazed a few of those people down too, right there and then, pretty much.
Yep. It's happened many times. It happened on my Whistler video in the gondola at the end of the video. Patty and I end up puffing a bunch of people down that we had never met before that were excited to have a little puff. It's kind of one of the joys of cannabis, and it shows the power of cannabis even under the umbrella of paranoia and the umbrella of prohibition. People were still willing to sort of, have trust and have faith. And that thing, what the DEA really always were attacking was trust. Like back in the day when Howard was doing his thing, Howard Marks, they, doing things with tons of material that was like on the cuff. It was like, oh yeah, the semis at this address, just pull up, weigh what you the DEA started getting people to rat on one another and busting people. They just sort of disintegrated that trust. And some people have always held on to it, maybe not necessarily to do like a 5-ton deal or whatnot, but to just have trust at a concert and share a joint with someone or smoke a bowl with someone that you don't know. And I think it's going to be one of the powers of cannabis when cannabis becomes more legal and prohibition drops away, that we're going to see this incredible power of just being able to be like, you want to share?
Even before you get to the concert, I can remember driving to a Jethro Tull concert in the 60s or late 60s. And it was in Long Beach, if I remember correct. And we were driving from Hollywood. We're on the freeway. And I noticed that the car next to us, there was on the freeway, there was 3 guys in there passing a joint. So I waved at him because I was smoking one. The cars got really close to each other, and we traded joints on the freeway. I don't know who these people were. I never saw them again. But they were probably going to Jethro Tull. Who knows?
That's pretty awesome.
Bong rip.
Passing doobies out the window at 80K an hour. Although I guess you guys don't drive kilometers down there. 50 miles an hour, maybe. Bong rip? What are you smiling at? Just enjoying the day?
I was just thinking about like a convertible, and just a convertible would be great because you could just kind of like toss it right into the car as it's moving, you know, not have to worry about getting it through the window because the entire top is down. So I could only assume on those hot summer days in California that there's a lot of convertibles driving around, and so convertible would just make a bigger target to throw the joint into.
Not so easy to smoke joints in a convertible. They run.
It's just hard to light them, right, Sam?
Well, it's almost impossible, but you can use a cigarette lighter for that. Meaning a hot coil.
Oh boy.
Hey, Mark, did I read the chat earlier that Indra was trying to get in?
That who was?
Indra, our friend Indra, John Davis.
Well, he says he can't get into the actual YouTube chat room.
Oh, you can't get into the chat room. Okay. Oh, I didn't know if he was trying to get on the panel or not. Is he still in the penalty box?
He's not in the penalty box. No, not at all. I just listen. I just want to make sure that the conversation is not all about one person's product.
Right.
And I
hear you.
We all have things going on. There's all sorts of things. And it's, you guys were talking about bubble bags. That's great. And we're talking about the Caladrius. It's always good to mention these things. I just like, for me, I would love for Hash Church to be nonstop bubble talk for the 2 or 3 hours every episode. But people don't want that. They don't want to just hear about bubble hash for 2 or 3 hours every week. So we mention it here and there. I could probably count on like 1 or 2 hands how many times I've mentioned my own product on Hash Church.
I got a question for Sam. It's kind of going back to that greenhouse hash church we had a while back when he was talking about sexing plants by putting them in the dark for 1 day.
Yes.
I had people comment on that or ask me after, Sam, wanting to know what size or what stage are the plants in when you actually do this sexing of the plants, or when's the best time? Small, big?
In the beginning, they were from seed, but later on, everybody grew with clones. So it was, but clones, you usually know what the sex is already. So it's usually seeds that they're growing, and they have to be at least maybe a foot tall. Then, I mean, you could sex them. If you're just going to sex them and strictly only sex them, you can even do it a bit earlier. But if you're going to flower them, then you want to have a little size to the plant before you flower it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people popping beans or planting seeds nowadays compared to getting clones, just because the whole clone fiasco in California was such a dirty business that, the Phylos came out now and has sex testing kits also to help people that can go, I guess, as soon as the plant. I'm not sure which stage exactly it has to be in, but they can take a sample.
No, they can do that as soon as I think you can even use I'm afraid my pronunciation is terrible. Catalidin, or the little round leaf even before the serrated leaves.
Oh wow!
But the problem with those tests is they can tell you if the DNA is male or female, correct? But they can't tell you if it's a female that's intersex. So you still got to do your work, dude.
Well, and that's the problem. A lot of the test kits for most people are expensive. And so with the expense of the test kit, the knowledge that you dropped that day on Hash Church about being able to sex the plants and putting them in the dark for one day was huge.
It depends on the variety. That'll work really good for early, fast maturing varieties. For later maturing varieties, you might want 2 or 3 days.
Okay. Yeah, because it got a lot of people's attention after that one because, like I said, the sex test kit is kind of expensive for craft growers, and a lot of people are popping seeds. And so, everybody wants to weed everything out and figure it out as soon as they can.
The plant will just show sex. It will not continue flowering, and it's easy cabrese.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't think one day was enough, but it makes sense.
Well, you see the darkness. 2 weeks later, it will declare sex. And it just declares sex at the crotches if you only do it one day like that. So it'll show up a couple of either male or female flowers, whatever the plant is. Results later. Veg. I mean, it never really left veg. It just flowered a tiny, tiny, tiny bit.
I'm peacing out. Got chores to do before my lights go off. Nice talking with all of you. Take her easy, everybody.
Take it easy, D. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the day. I know I'm going to. Not sure how.
I want to throw in a thing.
Please.
Back when I was doing indoor farming, I found, I don't know how I discovered it. Maybe it was part of trying to understand photoperiod and how it affects cannabis. But I found that most of the different cultivars I was working with, if I gave them a 24-hour period of darkness when I moved them from their growing phase to their flowering phase, I would reduce as much as a week to 10 days off of the amount of time that it took them to finish flowering. And I wondered if anyone else would.
Also, Wade, but
yes.
It also slightly reduces yield.
Ah. Well, I was go ahead.
Longer flowering gives more yield in general.
It might be that I didn't notice that because the other practices I was working with, this was when I was in my learning curve about how plants responded indoors. But I remember learning that one fairly early on, and maybe other things contributed to the increase in yields that I saw. But yeah, I want to second what Eric brought up and what you've shared with us already, that cannabis is incredibly sensitive to photosynthesis, photoperiod, how long a period of darkness it has. And you can do a lot with learning about your plants by taking cuttings of seedlings and putting them in dark and seeing what's going on with them.
Yeah,
anyway.
What we did, one of the first things we did was we took the exact same clone and we had it being maintained under 18 or 24 hours of light or whatever it was, veg. And then we took identical size pots, identical size clones, the same clone, and we flowered some of them under 8 hours or 9 hours. And we flowered just from directly from 18 to 12, whatever hours we're using for the flowering. And other ones, we brought it down gradual. So in other words, we knocked off 2, 3, 4 minutes a day. And it absolutely gives you different form, different yields, different slight results, for sure.
Another thing that I have run into, Sam, and I have a question about is that I run into a lot of people that are doing light deprivation, early flowering in the summertime when it's really hot. And a lot of people get great buds and great quality, and it doesn't cool down much in the evening time. But a lot of people try to say that they experience the plants being finished 7 to 10 days sooner than they normally would if they were like grown indoors, let's say. Like a lot of people will say, oh, this plant flowers in, 60, 70 or whatever days. But in a greenhouse doing light deprivation in the middle of the summer, they actually feel like or seem that they harvest, like I was saying, 7 to 10 days earlier. Have you ever?
Well, there's a couple possible reasons. Number one is the lumens you receive from the sun in the greenhouse are way beyond anything you're giving artificially with lights. So, or the temperatures. I've seen what you're saying too, but I can't say concretely why it was in their case, but I strongly suspect what I just said.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun phenomenon, I guess you could say, or something that occurs or happens that I hear a lot. But I don't know if it's through testing or people just looking at it going, yeah, it's done, and going through that method or whatever.
I know in general, I like cooler temperatures at night, and I also like not such extreme high temperatures. I find really high temperatures have a tendency to boil off the terpenes faster on the living plant.
I mean, I can agree with you on that. One of the things I found through my practices was, and I found this summer at a farm actually, and it was kind of ironic to see it happening there, is that a lot of times I would put my greenhouse where it gets 4 o'clock shade by a tree in the afternoon. And if it gets full sun all day long and then starts to go in the shade about 4:30, maybe even earlier at times, we would see the plants start to cool down before we pull the light depth cover. And that would actually, nowadays with the more advanced greenhouses, you can still run ventilation and do all these things that we couldn't do before. But even for the do-it-yourself or pulling tarps isn't going to have a lot of ventilation when they do pull that tarp. And so the minute they pull the tarp, we're seeing less condensation in the greenhouses because of the fact the plants have a chance to cool down. And I see it, I think, help the quality of the cannabis quite a bit because of that fact that it has that chance to cool down a little bit before we encase it in that bubble.
It makes sense to me. I mean, when the plants are really cooking in a greenhouse and it's really freaking hot, their stomatas are completely open and they're transpiring water vapor like you can't believe. Which is not good when you close it all up.
No, because I went to a farm that actually was asking me some questions, and they had one that's at the top of the hill in the middle of the sun, and then they had another greenhouse that's down below that got in the shade, and the stuff in the shade in the early afternoon had better quality than the stuff that was up in the full sun. And they pulled the tarps at the same time and did a lot of these things, but the stuff down low got cooler quicker, and I thought that was, one of the main reasons it was better.
25 years ago, we used to, and we still did until recently, until I retired, we would spray our greenhouse with white, they call it caulk here. It's like a white paint that's water soluble, and you spray the outside of the greenhouse to reduce heat in the summertime when the light levels and the heat levels are high. And it absolutely consistently produced better cannabis with no loss in yield than if you had high temperatures and way more light.
I'm just holding down the chat room. That's the reason I'm not talking right now. There's a whole thing going on in the chat room right now that I'm just sort of trying to stay on top of.
I'm just kind of working away. I got a cord running across the top of my laptop because it died. I figured while I'm sitting here, I might as well put some clones in some dirt. Working on my garden. Working with you guys. So that's it. Working away. I'm like sifting, making my medicine for the week, and plant my plants, and making sure everything's ready to go for next crop.
Nice. You should come over here one of these days, John. I have some resin, but this box is all the edibles that were entered in the Karma Cup this year.
I'm gonna head downtown and watch that court case with the dispensaries tomorrow, and maybe when it's over, before I should come on up and say hi.
Yeah, make sure you do it earlier than later, because I think I'm flying to Toronto tomorrow and then on to Manitoba to maybe secure some acres of biomass for a CBD project I'm working on.
That's awesome. We'll talk after church and we'll make some arrangements.
Sounds good. Sounds good. 10 more minutes. I think a 2-hour church will be in order today. Nice and short.
It's always short. It's always educational. There's always things going on.
Is that a Hindu Kush? Yeah. Is that a Hindu Kush?
Yes, it's a Hindu Kush clone that my little puppet Sammy was working on.
Nice. Good job, Sammy. Little Hindu Kush. Just a little Hindu Kush. Good job, Sammy. Even Sammy's getting his hands dirty. What's that, Ron? Does anyone hear that?
Yeah, I hear it totally.
Is he coming through like a robot?
Total robot. I thought maybe I gotta mute myself. I was like, you know what? You got some. I'm going to that.
RasTa Robot.
RasTa Robot.
You might need to come back in. It's really, we're not hearing you good.
Okay.
I did kind of hear him say, okay. That was robotic for sure.
There you go.
Wireless. Yeah. Wireless does suck a little bit, doesn't it?
So CBD, big companies moving into town. I guess we're going to get a lot of CBD medicine on the market here for legalization quite quickly, I see, yeah?
Yeah, it's a big part of the lab that I'm involved with building. They're going to definitely do, we're going to definitely do large-scale crude oil production and distillation and isolate for CBD and THCA.
You're doing that with hemp fields or with the plant or certain separations? I know there's a lot of stuff going on in Manitoba.
I think all of the above. I think you're
doing the robot.
20% CBD. I'm doing the robot.
You're doing the robot.
It's because you're not muting your mic, maybe. How do I sound now? Better?
Much better.
Yeah, it's because when we don't mute our mics, it makes that robot thing even more sort of easy to happen. So sorry about that, Roboto Bubble Man in the house. But yeah, what was I saying? I guess I was talking about, that we're going to go all the routes, have greenhouse partners, have field-grown hemp, have crude oil from, countries like Jamaica and Colombia be able to get imported into Canada that we can produce isolate from. I think having a variety of sort of streams makes the most sense, but companies will do it lots of different ways. And it's definitely exciting times with way. Legalization, at least, now I understand whenever you say that, there's always some sour sap in the audience that's like, this isn't legalization. This is Prohibition 2.0. But I'm not sure those people remember having their doors kicked in and being arrested and having their kids taken away and all that or other fun stuff that happened in the days of Prohibition. This is definitely better. It's not perfect. Just like when alcohol prohibition ended, it didn't end and then you could just buy alcohol on every street corner. It was like slow and steady, and you couldn't even put like beer signs in your window right away or other, alcohol sold here. So I'm hoping that it's not going to take as long as it did with alcohol, 20 to 30 plus years. But regardless if it does, we've made some big strides in the last 10 to 20 years in this community industry, however you want to look at it.
The last 5 years has been just catastrophic. The changes have been just amazing. I mean, it just all 2012. It just like something happened, and it just kind of just went like that. And now we're seeing it. It's fantastic. Actually, I think it all started back in the 60s, right?
I think it's better that big business and government is involved, because if they're not involved, then big business and government will hate cannabis, and it'll just be illegal forever and ever. And that's not better.
That's definitely not better. Agreed. I have this sort of argument all the time because people are like, we don't need all these regulations. And I'm like, I think we need some regulations. Maybe we don't need all of them, but some. It's like, imagine going to a kitchen at a restaurant that doesn't have to follow food safety, simple food safety regulations. I mean, those are put in place for the end consumer safety, so that you don't end up with food poisoning or eating some.
Otherwise, you'll end up with kitchens that also breed rats in the same room for selling to people that like to eat rats.
I'm telling you, it's definitely a good idea. And I hear the argument all the time where people are like, these legal companies are just poisoning us. They've already had recalls. And I'm like, listen, that means they got caught and it's known. The other side of the coin is that nobody ever knows, because nobody ever gets caught, because nobody's testing, and you just put it into the black market and sell it. That doesn't seem better either. I don't understand the mentality in people thinking like, I'm going to continue to buy from the black market. I mean, I get this. If you're one of those people that can grow your own, then amazing. It's great to grow your own, but it's not realistic to think that the majority of people are going to grow their own cannabis for their own medicine. We do it because we love it and it's our passion, but it is a substantial amount of work when it all breaks down. And to think that
it's as simple as, do most people grow their own tomatoes or their own tobacco or make their own beer and wine? Sure, we all know people who do, but not the majority.
Not the majority. And even the people that do they grow enough tomatoes for their entire year? Or do they eat their own tomatoes for a month or two and that was just kind of a nice little thing? You know, are they literally producing all their food, all like 24 hours a day, 365 days a year? It's rare for sure. Are they making their own clothes? And, you know, like, cannabis has got to be available to those that want it and need it, and not just those that can grow it. So I see it.
I love access. It's fantastic. It'll be great to see. I hope we get bubble hash in the stores soon. Dry sift.
Well, got to start making it. You know, I'm working with Whistler Technologies now, and we're producing some large scale reactors and linear actuators for washing large amounts of water hash at a time. So that's a project I'm very excited about. We got a new 300-liter unit coming out. You can check us out at Whistler Technologies on Instagram there. Got an account.
I'm breeding new cannabis varieties where each of the resin heads will be the size of a large grape.
Oh, dude.
I need those.
All the screens are just out the window. It's like you don't even, you know, you could use like the largest hold screen and it's going to catch them.
But at that size, you could pick them with a pair of tweezers.
I say you could just.
No, you don't use tweezers. You use more like a fishing net.
Very
Marcus,
nice.
how are they planning on doing the hemp extraction in Canada?
Yeah, you could get one of. Have you seen the machine that harvests cherries from cherry trees?
Yes.
It just like, it goes under and it opens this big umbrella under the tree, and then it grabs the trunk and it shakes the shit out of the tree, and all the cherries fall into this piece and go down. It's we got to make those custom units for the new cultivar that Sam's working on.
We need variety that when you shake the tree, meaning cannabis tree, the trichome just breaks off immediately, even at hot temperatures, and falls down into your net.
Right? Be awesome. I'm in. I'm waiting on that project for.
I have to say, the sift is the tastiest of all tastes. I do love it. Thank you for you guys for showing us how to make the most epic medicine available. we can all do it at home.
Yes, and thanks everyone for coming out today. I'm going to call it a day here at the 2-hour mark of Hash Church episode 11, Hash Church 2.0 episode 11. Thank you guys sort of last minute once again for coming on and making conversation. Thanks for Mike West, who's come and gone, and thanks to RasTa Ronnie, who's come and gone, and thanks to Etienne Fontan, who has come and gone, and of course D420K, who has come and gone. The rest of you guys, Dr. Mark, Johnny B, Wade, and Skunkman Sam, and the 500 people who are still viewing this, thank you all so much. I hope you have a great Sunday, and we will see you next time. Peace out,
Ciao.
everybody.
Peace, guys.
Thank you.
Get rid of us, eh?
Bye, everybody.